Welcome and thank you for joining Diaries of an Ex-Adult Entertainer with Robyn Robbins, the podcast, where we have real, raw, and uncut conversations about transforming negative experiences. Get ready to be empowered to take inspired action to heal, activate inner liberation, and birth your new. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Diaries of an Ex-Adult Entertainer, the podcast, with your illustrious, vivacious host, moi, Robyn Robbins. And today we are in for a treat. I hope you all are ready. Listen, without further ado, I'm going to jump right in and introduce our guest. Merry Alijoski, honey. Isn't her name so spicy? It is. Is her current marriage and family therapy grad student at Touro University. She started her personal journey once she decided to divorce. Merry took the next flight to Austria where her aunt lived. There, she found her peace. She came back and couldn't fully let go of her disorganized attachment that she had to her first husband. She hired a life coach who specialized in divorce, did a lot of inner healing, got off anti-depressants, ultimately found the love of her life and her calling. She then hired a business coach and founded Divine Love Guide, a high-end relationship coaching program where she teaches high-achieving women to obtain and sustain love. Everybody, welcome Coach and Merry Alijoski, darling.
Thank you for that wonderful intro. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited. You guys, her story is very, very, very unique. And I'm super excited because she is currently a grad student. And so there's going to be a duality within this interview that I want you all to really, really perk up and listen for, because she's not only going to be talking from the vantage point of the person that went through it, but she's also going to be able to provide us these therapeutic insights as to the psychology portion of what goes on behind these type of experiences. So when I say you are in for a treat, you are definitely in for a treat. Let's jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about your first marriage and what that was like for you.
Oh, the first marriage was definitely a difficult 7 years, 7 years of bad luck. So if anyone is listening who knows me, all jokes aside, so that marriage has taught me a lot, and I look back on it with grace, love, and forgiveness. But it was definitely impactful in my mental health. It really was very destructive, and looking back at it now, like I said, from a stance of forgiveness and love and happiness, I look back and I just think that we were just not a compatible match, and that's what it all comes down to. I often hear that sometimes, in the psychology world, now I really understand things from such a deeper level instead of just a superficial level, like, not saying things like, oh, well, he was so bad or this and that. And now I really understand that sometimes we are not a fit for someone and they're not a fit for us. So I think what it all comes down to is being with someone who's complementary to you, to your values, to your personality, to your spiritual background, there's so many aspects to us humans. And when you find someone who's complementary to most of those things, and doesn't have to be everything, then I think what you will find is peace with that partner. And I did not have that because overall it was not complementary to me, and that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your mental and or emotional state?
It was really bad.
And that marriage. Take us back to that place. when you was in that marriage, what was that like for you emotionally, mentally? What was going on there in that space?
So as a high achieving woman, even then, I was, doing my undergrad at the time. I was working full time. I was cooking. I was cleaning. I was doing laundry. Like anything, a day to day woman does, I was doing that, working around the clock. And then the evening will hit where, I would be, around him, and I would have these panic attacks, just to being around him. It was like I was panting, and, every day we were arguing. Like I said, the main reason is because we were just not complementary to one another. And I'll go deeper into it later, but I was so attached to him that I couldn't let him go, even though it was not good for me. So, but to make it a visual picture for those listening, my panic attacks would be, it would start where everything will turn black, and I could feel my hands starting to get weak, and I would literally just collapse to the ground. And a lot of times this would happen in the bathroom, because when I feel like I couldn't argue anymore, I didn't have the energy to argue anymore, I would just lock myself into the bathroom. It would get dark, and then I would just collapse. And then I would go toward the window in my apartment over there, and just go try to get a fresh breath air, because I didn't have enough strength to go outside to go for a walk. And I was in therapy at the time, and we did go to therapy, and we tried to make it work. But even my psychiatrist, who's Muslim as well, he's like, listen, we're from the same religious background, we're from the same culture. I'm telling you this not as a psychiatrist. I'm telling you as a family friend. This is not the person for you. There's a path for him, and there's a path for you. And if you stay any longer, you are not going to be able to have kids. And, your mental health will deteriorate. So despite the fact that you're going to school, and despite the fact that you're a full-time worker, I was 4.0 GPA student, employee of the month at, Newark Presbyterian Hospital, doing all these things. And here the psychiatrist was telling me, Mary, you're going to go down, and you're going to probably end up somewhere here in admissions if you continue doing what you're doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So what was the defining moment for you? When did it click where you, because as women, we love hard.
Yeah.
And we will stay and stay and stay and try to work through so many things, not wanting to give up, just believing that maybe if we get help, maybe if this, maybe if that, it'll be better. Although the psychiatrist said that,
Yeah.
what was the personal defining moment for you when you recognized within yourself, like, oh my God, like I have to get out of this?
So it was the health, the health deteriorating, and I could feel myself, not feeling well. But what really did it for me was the fact that I got the second job, because when I started to work, two jobs, then I was like, well, I can provide for myself completely. I don't need to rely on him for anything. And at that point, he was not contributing anymore, I think, for the past year or maybe more. So I said to myself, like, okay, this is not making any sense. One, my health is deteriorating, and two, I don't have any financial benefit from this person. So what is the point of staying, And I just said, you know what, I think what I need to do is just get out of this environment. And that's when I booked the ticket to Austria just randomly. I was in my office, and I'm like, okay, the ticket is $700, no problem. I have the money. I'm going right now.
Whoo, you are helping. You are helping. You really are helping. I hope y'all picking up what she's putting down. I'm gonna highlight a few points in a second, but this is already getting good to my whole entire soul. Okay, this is getting real good. So you book the flight, you go.
Yep.
Take us to that place. Once you're there, how did that journey begin?
So funny enough, he drove me there. My ex, my first husband, drove me to the airport and was livid. he was like, so you want me to drive you to the airport because, like, what is going on? Like, I think he thought that we were gonna go pick someone up. But I'm like, no, no, no. Like, I didn't take a lot of things. I had like this little mini luggage, I hid it in the trunk and I'm like, listen, I'm leaving. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm leaving. Like, I'm going. I gotta go. And he's just like, okay. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Austria. And that's when the phone call started. My cultural community, very much so like any other strong cultural community, doesn't matter what culture you're from, is people start talking. People like, oh, the runaway bride. That's what they called me.
Mm.
My culture is very strong, Islamic
Yeah.
background, Macedonian next to Greece, and so the phone call started that I was a runaway bride. So I'm already on the plane, and all the people in my community is like, okay, Mary's running away. She's ditching her husband, and she's doing something so rebellious and unlike herself, because they knew me as the woman who's quiet and very conforming, because the medications that I was on kept me very neutral. So I wasn't really a person to argue. I couldn't, handle arguments, and I didn't talk back to people. And that's what the people in my community kind of knew me as, and they liked it in a way too, because I was very respectful to the patriarchal standards in the culture.
So let us in a little bit more about this culture so that we all can understand a little bit more and follow what you're saying. What was the background? What was the culture like?
So the culture's still alive to today. And fortunately, I'm no longer married to anyone in that culture. I moved way apart, but in this culture, it's mostly Islamic, and Macedonian background is, it's a very patriarchal society where the men have the first word and last word. The women work very hard. I know a lot of women who are actually the breadwinners. And the men take advantage.
Wow.
I'm not speaking for every man in my culture. I'm speaking, for those who, provide that destruction to women, is through that, they let the women work so hard, take care of the kids, take care of the house. They have such high expectations of what a woman should do on a daily basis. And if you ask me, that in itself is destruction to women.
Wow. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because there's no 50-50 there. It's like 70-30 or maybe 80-20. The woman is doing so much. She's bringing money home. She's taking care of the kids. She's taking care of the house. And she is giving her utmost respect to his family, despite whatever happens, whatever they say, whatever they do. It's like you are required to be a conformative person at all times. And if you're not, then abuse may follow.
Wow. That's hardcore right there. I hope y'all just picked all of that up. That's really hardcore. What was that culture like for you? Did you feel like you lost your voice? You lost yourself? Like, bring us into that. What was that actually like for you? How did you navigate that?
I think when you, in general, if you grow up seeing something from such a young age, it's your normalcy.
Yeah,
absolutely. That was definitely my normalcy. And it's funny because, looking back, which I'll dive deep into it later, is when you grow up in destruction already, and then you expect it, and you thrive on it. And the funny part is that I was seeking validation from this patriarchal society.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's called domestication. Absolutely.
Yes. I will give a quick example to the listeners. So let's say family is coming over on Saturday. I'm already planning this 6-course meal by Wednesday, right? Because I want to impress the guests. So now when those guests leave, they will talk within the community like, wow, we went to her house. Her house was so clean. She gave us such great appetizers. She was so nice. She made us like this cool cappuccino coffee. So I was so focused on getting the validation, not only from my first husband, but from everyone around us.
Wow.
Yeah. And I no longer do that.
Yeah, so that kind of made you like what, like a people pleaser, you would say, trying to, yeah. Wow. So here you are dealing with all of this, which was pretty much your norm. That's how you grew up. But after a while, you've been with your husband for several years. You're like, you know what? Defining moment. I gotta go. They're calling you the Runaway Bride. You're in Austria.
Yes.
Bring us to Austria. How did that personal journey for you start of inner healing and everything?
I think just being there, Austria is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I got the chance to go to the surrounding places like Czechoslovakia. So it was really, really cool just to be in a different scenery. And I think that's so important for anyone listening who is going through a really tough time. If you have the financial means, go somewhere. Go somewhere outside of your environment, because like I said, if you are in the environment that is no good for you and that's all you know, it's hard to gain a different perspective. So
absolutely.
yeah, so when I went to Austria, I think the environment in itself was just healing, just looking at new things, and also being around my dad's family. It was so healing, like just to receive like hugs from my little cousins that I haven't seen maybe in 5 years. That was so healing, and I was able to see some good parts of the culture, meaning I saw couples in the community that were actually normal. I saw the man helping out at home, which was my cousin, of course. He was, wonderful with his wife. And, we went to the mall with them, and he's like, oh, here you go. And he bought her this 300-euro jacket. And I'm like, what? Like, is that even a thing? So I was able to see the good sides. And I said to myself, wow, there must be something out there that is just as healthy as what I'm looking at right now. And that shifted so many things for me, because I was able to say to myself, hey, you love your culture so much. Maybe you can still be with someone within the culture, but it can't be this person.
Yeah. Because what makes things toxic is not the relationship itself, it is the individuals. And this is why healing unresolved trauma and negative experiences, y'all already know I'm about to go on a rampage, it's so important. It's so important. Because what happens is we wind up with people, no matter what the interaction is, whether it's romantic or just a friendship. And what winds up happening is that we, unfortunately, have to experience the unhealed version of them.
Right.
Which is not healthy, is not toxic, and it's ultimately not who they truly are. But because that work hasn't been done,
right,
we get that other side of it. So wow, okay, this is so good. Like what you're saying reminds me of what my therapist. I have a therapist. I advocate for mental health.
That's right.
You guys, get you a good therapist. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It doesn't matter how much you feel like you've grown or whatever the case may be. You are never too evolved, if you will, for therapy.
Right.
And so when my therapist used to say all the time, shout out to Dr. Kia, I love you, girl. What my therapist used to say all the time is, Robyn, you cannot heal in the environment that wounded you. So when you say go somewhere, and it's so funny, like real talk, right now I want to take a trip. And so that's why I was smiling so hard, because for me, it's like confirmation. Yeah, girl, you need to get up out of here. Oh, take a break. You deserve it. You know? And it's just like, yes, I have been personally just when I want to be around water. Water, I love water. Water grounds me. Water resets me. And it's just beautiful to look at. And so I want to go somewhere.
Definitely do it.
Where there's a lot of water. And I want to do it more often. Like, I want that to be my everyday, like a part of my lifestyle, honestly, is what I'm getting to, because I just think it's so important. Not just for healing aspects, but just for, if you know something works for you, integrate that into your life. You know?
I agree.
Yes. So, girl, here you are, Runaway Bride, finding your peace in Austria. You're seeing how healthy relationships actually exist within the culture, and you get this aha moment, like, maybe it's not the culture, it's who I was with and his family. So now bring us up to speed when your life shifts again.
So when I came back, like I mentioned before, is I was on the airplane coming to New York. So picture this, I'm on the plane. I'm like full of positive energy, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. I even bought this book. It was so funny. Like it's a book you can find it on Amazon. It's Should I Stay or Should I Leave? Because I was really contemplating, like, should I divorce or should I not? Should I divorce or should I not? So I land in New York, and I'm like so ready to go into my apartment to like tell him, like, you know what, this is it. I'm done with you. And as soon as I get home, I couldn't do it. Yeah, I couldn't do it. So, but thankfully, I mean, I found Shamar on social media while I was in Austria. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, like, I know you don't want to give advice, like, should I, leave him or not leave him, but I want to leave him, but I just don't know how. Can you please help me?
Wow.
Because she didn't want to say, like, yeah, leave him or stay with him, because, it, even as a therapist, as a coach, it's like too much direct guidance can be hurtful.
Absolutely. They have to find their own way and arrive to their own answers. Absolutely.
Yes. So then I said, okay, well, SOS, like, help me out. And we were able to, transition to me leaving within not even 2 weeks. So here's a surprising part, though. Here's the funny part, which I look back now and I'm laughing, but at the time I was like sobbing over it. So within those 2 weeks, was trying to shift myself from, like, maybe to definite yes, leaving. But within those 2 weeks, my first husband at that time, he already left and he already fixed his new apartment. And I had no idea.
Wow.
So, like, it was because he was so mad that I left to Austria. That hurt his male pride to a whole nother extent. So when I was away, he was already leaving.
Wow. So that worked out for you, actually.
It did work out. But then when I found out, I was like, wait, I was supposed to be the one to make the decision. So it was like, like, I was kind of mad, but it did work out because he ended up leaving the apartment and I stayed. And then I worked with Shamar for a whole year. Worked with him a whole year, which doesn't happen often because people who enter mentorship and don't take it seriously, they fall off and say, oh, it doesn't work. Well, that's not how it works. To truly feel the transformation, you have to stay the amount of time that the mentor feels that you should stay.
Yeah, the coach. Yeah, absolutely. Was it a mentorship program or a coaching program?
It was a one-on-one with Shamar for a whole entire year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
shout out to Coach Shamar.
Yeah, shout out to her. She worked her magic. I mean, oh my God. She was there for me every step of the way, all the way until I found my husband now, Adwell, love of my life. Yeah, we didn't think it was gonna happen, but it happened so fast. Once it's crazy because I was in pain, I was healing, but I was moving. It was like three compartments. Like, oh my God, it was just.
Say it again, Coach Mary. You did what?
Oh my God. I was in pain, I was
Mhm.
healing and moving at the same time.
Did y'all catch that? There go the mic drop. There's the gems right there. Remember, every story shared, you guys are going to see their own unique blueprint. Didn't I tell y'all? I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help us. In pain.
Yep.
And you were
Healing.
And you were
moving on.
Moving on. Woo! So this is your little personal secret sauce, your blueprint of how you begin to transform your experience. Bring us deeper, girl. It's getting good to me. Bring us deeper into that. So you're coaching, you're doing these three things simultaneously.
Yes.
And what you found the love of your life. Bring us into that. All the shifts. What began to happen? Where were you? What was happening? How were you emotionally, mentally? Bring us into that.
Okay. So once I ditched the first husband, like we're done, of course I had flashbacks every single day. It was not easy. I would be driving to work, with my full makeup on, like trying to feel good, and I would be breaking down, on my way to work, behind the desk. And, but then after doing my sessions with Shamar, I would feel a little better. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to start dating. And she's like, I don't think you're ready for that. And I'm like, yeah, but I really want to date. And then we came to this conclusion, which is really powerful, what I'm about to say. It's okay to want to be in a partnership, even if you are, it doesn't seem like it's the right time. Mm-hmm. If you feel like it's the right time, then okay. But here's the thing. Here's the catch. It's like, how do I say? Let's say you go buy lottery tickets, right? And let's say you're eligible to win a few lottery tickets, right? So let's say in a week you're able to win $5, right? That's good. It's a good amount of money. But let's say you waited and you were able to win, let's say, $500 in 1 month. That's much better than the $5, right? Yes. Now, let's say you waited 2 months and it's going bigger now. You just jumped to $100,000, right, in 2 months. So this is just a metaphor that I just made up in my head right now. It's just to show that sometimes patience will give you something that you didn't even think about, something even better, because you don't know better yet. So if you're patient, you will receive that higher value in the relationships that you're looking for. So if you jump on it, you're only going with the knowledge that you know. So why don't you just wait a little bit, go with new knowledge, and you're going to level up.
Ladies, hey, can you hear me? Mic drop. That was so good, Coach Merry. Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. So here you are, pivoting, moving around, finally getting over that disorganized attachment. Let's highlight that for a moment, though, because I just want to make sure, I know that is a therapy term, and I want to just make sure everybody understands what we even mean by that, and talk just a little bit of how you were able to overcome this disorganized attachment that you had to your first husband, to continue to be able to pivot to ultimately find the love of your life, your calling, and so many other things you were able to accomplish, which we're going to get into.
So in the psychology world, which I've learned is that the goal of relationships is to feel secure. So when you think of the word secure, you think of safety, you think of feeling peaceful and calm. But what happened to me was that I grew up in a disorganized home, meaning that my parents, were always arguing, and till this day are like bickering, probably in the car right now. So that was pretty much what disorganized attachment was growing up, where there was a push and pull, meaning, yes. I'll give a very specific example. So my mother used to work so many hours a day. Until this day, she's a workaholic, and that's where I get it from. And so whenever she would leave to go to work, some days I would feel sad, but some days I wouldn't care. And when she would return, I would feel the same. Some days I would care and some days I wouldn't. And if she was working, let's say, so many shifts, like maybe 3, 4 days, when she came back, I would be scared of her because she was almost like, who is this lady? I would tell my grandmother, she was my caretaker. I'm like, what is she doing here? Like, I don't want to go out with her to the park. I'm used to going out to the park with you. So,
Wow.
like both parents were never really around that much. But what hit me the most was my mother not being around, and it's sad because I don't have one single memory of her, like going out with her. I don't remember anything. And that went into my relationships where it's pretty much this push and pull. Like, you know how I said I felt anxious sometimes and sometimes I felt okay. So that went into my first marriage where there were moments where I needed extreme closeness, right? And then there was moments where I would push him away and be like, "Hey, like I just want to be left alone. I can't deal with this. Oh my god." You know, like have my panic attacks and like just be like shut out. And that's
Wow.
rooted from how I was with my mom. And I didn't know that until recently.
Girl, you just helped me personally. Like,
Yeah. So that's what
wow.
it is. Let me explain. So it's secure is the goal, right? Avoidant, there's avoidant attachment as well. So avoidant is, like I said, you push people away.
Right.
Anxious attachment is where you need too much closeness and you need like a validation often, like
Mhm.
please tell me you love me. Do you love me? Do you still love me? Am I beautiful? Did I gain weight? You know, it's like that. And then there's disorganized, which is the mixture of both avoidant and anxious. So it's like a hot mess.
Right.
Disorganized is like the highest level of dysfunction in relationships. It doesn't have to be with who you're with. It can be with your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, whoever was your primary caregiver. Those are the people who have the highest influence in your
In your life.
relationship.
Girl, when I tell you, you literally, like, seriously, you literally, I had a conversation recently, and you literally just gave me the professional term for what I was trying to convey.
Wow.
While we were that's why I said you really just helped me. Like, whoa, like I'm gonna go back to the person and say, I know what it is now, like what the actual term is. And it was weird because we literally was having a conversation and we came to the understanding that my way of being in relationships, same thing, like my biological mother passed away when I was 6, but I am adopted.
Sorry to hear that.
And yeah, it's okay. And my adopted mom was the same. She was a workaholic, worked a
Mm.
lot, and she was never there.
Oh,
And when she came home, the rule was I give me at least an hour to wind down. But we're children. Children don't understand that you need a
no.
time, you know? So we would give her time, but by the time she had her time, we are children. We got to get ready for bed and get up in school in the morning.
Right.
So she was not emotionally available to us.
Mm.
She rarely was physically available to us. And she just drove. Her message was education, education, education. Make sure you guys achieve great grades. Do not come up in this house pregnant.
Oh.
And she drove spirituality. Everybody in this house is going to church. You're going to know who Jesus is.
Oh, wow.
That was my upbringing. Those were the 3 messages that she drove, and she drove hard. And while I'm thankful for those messages,
Right.
there was so much missing. And I, so many people have told me, like, over time, like, Robyn, you're so cool and you're loving and stuff, but when it comes to emotions, it just seems like if it's not anger or happiness
There's no in between.
or sadness, it's like it wasn't even that it wasn't an in between. It was that I only knew how to exhibit like the basics.
Mm.
Angry, sad, happy, that's it. Angry, sad, happy. like
Extreme emotions.
That's basically what I knew how to exude. You know what I mean? And then even after a while, my sadness, and I tell people this, and for those of you who have read the book, Diaries of an Ex-Adult Entertainer, you already know, it got to a point where for years I couldn't even cry. Like literally for years. Yeah, it was rough.
It sounds like there was a lot of suppressed emotion to the point where it became stoic.
Absolutely. Because I was in straight up survival mode. I didn't have the time to process my emotions because I had to be there for my siblings. And if I didn't keep it together and if I broke down, then my siblings, and this was my mind, my thinking, then my siblings wouldn't feel secure and wouldn't believe that there was any hope for us. If the one that they knew to be strong broke down, then what is it going to be like for the rest of us?
What made you want to take on that kind of role in the family?
I didn't even want to. It just came. It came naturally to me. I'm naturally a protector. I'm naturally a protector. And I think that came from survival. Look at y'all, she questioning me. This is her interview. I'm just
here goes the therapy. Oh,
I'm really just affirming how what you just said was just so spot on. And this is literally what we were talking about. We came to that realization like, oh my God, Robyn, you get this. This came from the relationship you have with your mom. This is why you're like this in your relationships. Like, I'm supportive. I will push you. I'm there for you. But I have that thing where, okay, I'm there. And when I tell you I'm there, nobody can't beat me at being there.
Like overgiving.
Like, you know what I mean? And then after that, I need time. That's the avoidance. I need to recharge. That's what I just tell people I'm an ambivert. And after I pour out, I just need time.
And I think that's so common for high achieving women like ourselves, because we're so passionate about what we do. And, based on our upbringing, we're overgivers, high achievers because of the high expectations that were given to us in our childhood.
Yes.
But, the price that we have to pay for that is that our whole body becomes exhausted.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So the best way to deal with that is to have some sort of a balance. And, that's hard because even myself, I'm like, okay, it's 10 o'clock. I'm in bed. I should be dreaming right now, but I want to get this last post in, because it's like we're so into our work, but there comes a time where you just need to know when to rest, and allow yourself to rest. And I know it sounds easier than done. For high achieving people, it's a foreign concept. We wait all the way until we're like on 0% charge. And then we're like, oh, we need to go somewhere.
Yeah, no, I learned that lesson. 2019, September, I went on a sabbatical. And that's where I learned rest. That's where I began I was already kind of like in and out of my, what I call my feminine journey, like getting back into that embodiment of feminine energy. And I was on my sabbatical. It was a spiritual journey for me, but that's where I really, really, really began to get grounded and into that. And so you are so right. You are so right, but that is not my portion no more. I refuse. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, Robyn, you do so much. Robyn knows how to ask for help. Robyn knows how to delegate. Robyn knows balance. Robyn knows systems. So what looks effortless to others is because of everything that is happening to make it look amazing.
And that's incredible.
Catch that part, because I refuse to get burnt out. Ain't nobody taking me out early. I take naps.
Yes. Same.
Okay. Coach Merry. Oh my gosh, y'all. Are y'all enjoying this? Because I just want y'all to know it's okay to receive. Like Coach Merry just helped me right quick.
Oh my God.
It's her interview, but she just helped me Ladies listening, I know I have some men that listen to, especially on the audio version of the podcast. It is okay to receive. And I received that, Coach Mac, therapist and coach. I'm on double threat. I received that. And thank you so much. That was a breakthrough moment for me. Y'all was not expecting that. That was so good. I had no idea what disorganized attachment was. Whoa.
Yeah, I didn't know about it either. And there's so many things that I'm learning every single day in the psych world. And I think, I think you had a post on Facebook, I think it was a few weeks ago, where you said it's important to really learn your what you're teaching before you teach it, and receive the accreditation before you teach it. And I think that's so powerful, because it's one thing to coach from just experience, but then there's another thing from coaching from knowledge, because it's like our experiences can only take someone so far, because it's such a one-sided experience, right? Because everyone's experience is so different. So if I was to coach just on my experience, probably I would best serve the women in my cultural community. But what about the other women out there, who come from different backgrounds, different spiritual backgrounds, religious background, different beliefs about relationships altogether. So I think it's incredible that I'm learning about psychology every single day. And what the biggest breakthrough is, like what I've said, is how we were raised definitely influences our relationships. And knowing that, you'll be able to choose someone, who has overcome and become aware of how they were raised and how that affects them. Because if you're meeting someone who's unaware the same way that you're unaware, it's like two unaware people getting together and then boom, problems.
Right.
So if at least one of them is aware, this happened to me, when I met my now husband, he was not aware of anything. I mean, he grew up with a pretty, it seemed to be a pretty happy family. But, that I was, in psychology school and becoming aware of myself and going through the mentorship with Shamar and going to therapy as well. Like, I was doing 3 things at once for my personal journey. And I was able to pinpoint so many things from my now husband. I'm like, you know what? You guys make it seem like you're a perfect family. Well, guess what? Your dad was outside of your life for X amount of years when he wanted to, start a new life in Italy. And he left his mom and his brother in Albania to start a new life. And I'm like, well, how did that make you feel? That you were left alone for such a long time without your dad? Because the last thing that my father-in-law said to him was, I'm coming back. But he was only 8 years old. So when you step into your awareness and you're like healed, healing is an ongoing process. But when you're like 80% there and you're aware of your behaviors and you're aware of your family upbringing, and then when, then you're able to turn around and shift and say, hey, how did that make you feel when you were 8 years old? Right. You're able to heal your partner, which is cool.
Absolutely. I always tell clients all the time, and they laugh at me at first because they have no idea what I'm talking about, but I tell them all the time, a lot of the limiting beliefs and the things that we are probably going to be working through stems from your childhood. It's the inner child that we have to heal, especially those of us that are in a certain age bracket. Because, culture wise, as far as timing wise, we grew up at certain times.
Right.
It's different now. The people that are growing up now have so many things accessible. It's not perfect, but there's so many things that's okay. Like therapy, all these things, it's okay. As to where when we were growing up, oh my God, therapist? Absolutely not. What goes on in this house stays in this house. What do you mean? And then you better go somewhere and pray about that. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't know if we're going over our time, but
you're good.
What actually got me into therapy and on medications, antidepressants, was I wouldn't say fatal, but it was like a really dramatic experience. Because like you just said, my parents were so against like therapists. And then, when I was having problems within the marriage, within those 7 years, one day, I went to my parents' house for a few days because I just couldn't take it anymore. And I woke up in the morning and I fainted, like just drastically. I was just having a conversation with my father, And I just fainted, and my dad's like, what the hell's going on with this girl? He calls the ambulance. I go to the, hospital, and they're like, oh, sorry, your daughter has severe anxiety and she has to take medications and she has to see a therapist as soon as possible. So that's how it all started. Like I was, still married to my first husband, very young. I think the time that I got diagnosed was 19 years old.
Wow.
So that's how it all started. That's how the journey started. Although I wasn't able to get out so fast, that was the starting point.
Yeah.
That was the starting point.
Wow. Okay, so let's pivot.
Yeah.
You, throughout this journey, you've done all this work. You were in pain, but you were healing and you kept moving.
Yeah.
You y'all, this is giving me life. If you can't tell, I'm trying to get myself together, but this is giving me all types of life right through here. And you're doing all this good stuff. You stand up for yourself. You get out of the environment. You come back. You
Yep.
start to pivot again. You're working with your coach. You're getting all this breakthrough. You want to date again. You meet the love of your life. What are some other things that you were able to achieve and overcome as a result of you doing this inner work and transforming your experiences?
I think the greatest thing was the medications, because I was scared that, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to have children, because I don't know if the listeners know, but if you're on antidepressants, it's really high risk pregnancy. So not that I wanted to have a baby, but the thought of not being able to have one was really not sitting well with me.
Mm-hmm.
So once, I found a DOEAE, and, we were doing really well, I said to him, hey, my goal is to get off these medications. Like, I don't know if you're going to end up being the father of my kids or whatever, but I need your support, my friend. And he's like, yeah, sure. So I put it on a vision board, saying that I'm going to be off the medications within 1 year. Funny enough, due to like the high support from the coaches, the therapists, from my partner, I was able to get off in 2 months. Like, that is beyond like
Woo!
2 months. And I was on this medication for 5 years.
Wow.
These are medications that were my coping mechanism. Anytime I felt a high stress, it could even be the smallest little thing. Like, let's say you get a unexpected bill or something, I would be like, oh, okay, pop a pill. Like, so that it was really hard to get off. And, within those 2 months, I think I had to take off time from work, because my body couldn't handle, getting off of these drugs. It's like getting off real drugs, because I
Yeah.
was so reliant on them and, use them to feel happy. So then I was going through so many emotions, like, I was getting scared, like, hey, oh my God, now I'm with this new partner. And what if I am now so negative without the pills? And then he like runs away. So
Mhm.
that was the anxious part of me
Yeah.
still. And it was coming out like all in ugly places. Like, I was like, my thoughts were so ugly.
Mhm.
And, but I was mostly on the bed rest, and I was able to fight through it with everyone talking to me, all the mentors and the therapists. And I did it. Like, I was just like, wow, how I weaned off. If anybody who's listening is on antidepressants, how I weaned off was I was meeting the psychiatrist every single week. So they were able to see, okay, now you're ready to go down a little bit more. Now you're ready to go down a little more. And once I got off completely, I started to take a lot of vitamins, which people see now on my Facebook post. Like, I'm so big on vitamins. So when I up my vitamin intake, like every kind of vitamin you could think of, omega-3, all those good stuff. So when I started to take that, I was able to maintain like my happy moods and my serotonin levels. And funny part is, you can actually find supplements that have serotonin, which basically
Absolutely.
you can increase. Serotonin is to increase your happy moods. And if I knew that back then,
You
at
wouldn't take it.
19 years old, I wouldn't, allow someone to force me to take medication and put myself in a risk to the point where I wouldn't be able to have children. So, but you live and you learn. And like you said, people now are so, in a better stance, because parents are aware of these things. They are aware of supplements. They are aware of these therapeutic services, but my parents were not.
Right, right.
So it put me in such a long spiral, which like with one order on Amazon could have been
Ah,
like
gotta love Amazon.
like it could have been solved, you know?
Absolutely. So you overcome and you get off of the medicine, which is something we have in common.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, we have that in common as well. I think that's dope.
Yeah.
Um, and what else were you able to achieve though? Because you achieved quite a bit, not just getting off of the antidepressants, not just finding the love of your life. Take us into these other shifts and these achievements that you were able to have
I
and
think
attain.
the next shift was once I got off. Those 2 months were probably one of the two, I mean, the greatest hardship that I've ever experienced. So I was like, wow, like I'm gonna start to take mental health more serious. I want to be a mental health advocate. And as I was going through the sessions with Shamar, she was like, well, if you're so interested in mental health, why don't you look into some careers, that you could probably align with that. So I was looking around like, Then I ran across Touro University. The price was great, and the counselors were so nice, admissions was really nice, and I signed up. Like it was a no-brainer for me because I'm like, well, those 2 months were the hardest 2 months of my life. So I know someone is out there with the same journey right now. And if I could help them get off, if I can help them or even get on because they really need it, then I'm all for it.
Yeah.
So that was cool to find my calling. And, every day is a learning experience at school. It's cool.
Absolutely. So here you are, the love of your life.
Yep.
You kind of didn't tell us how that happened though. So really
Oh,
briefly, can you tell us how you guys met?
okay. So the first time, like how I said to Shamar, oh, I'm ready, but I really wasn't. Funny part was that I ended up dating somebody within the community. I won't say no names, but because that's all I knew, right? It was somebody that I knew like from a long time ago. So when I dated him, it was pretty much the same things that I was seeing in the past in the first marriage. I'm like, this is really repetitive. This is not what I want. I'm trying to get away from this. I don't want to relive this. I don't want another trauma. So, with the help of Shamar, we were both decided, we were like on the panel, like, he's a no. We're like, he's a no. And so then we're like, I gave myself a little bit more time. I think it was about 2 or 3 months, just doing the sessions with Shamar. Like, she gave me so many healing assignments. So week by week, I would do the assignments. And then I was like, you know what? Now I'm really ready. And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. So I signed up for this dating app, like so like random. I was working at the nursing home at the time during the pandemic. Like the pandemic just started. Like we were hearing some stuff in Europe, but it wasn't really a big thing here. So I'm at the office at the nursing home working, and I just sign up, and the first person who pops up, his name is Eduel, and I'm like, oh, he speaks Italian. I speak Italian. I took Italian in high school. Okay, this is gonna be cool. So we start talking, and one thing led to another. I'm like, wow, like this happened so fast. And here's the thing that I don't share with everyone because I just want to say. So because I was healed, I was able to stand up for myself when something happened in the relationship. And what I mean is that when you're dating, like a guy is probably talking to other people, right? Because he's trying to find the best one, right?
Uh-huh.
And then same goes for women. But women, we're a little different. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, that when we like someone, we're like, oh, forget everybody else.
Exactly.
We're like,
That's a problem. We need to have multiple people too in dating. Let's normalize that. It doesn't decrease your value or make you. Dating is not having sex. I mean, we're adults. Let's just call it.
yeah, let's just talk.
Dating is not having sex, ladies. It is
No.
okay to have multiple suitors, if you will.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, like going out to dinner, to a movie, like, like courting, back in the day, So, but people move so fast, and then, things get a little crazy. So, but so what I want to share with the listeners is that because I did the real healing and everything, it got to a point where I was like, oh my God, I really, really like him. He's so handsome. I never was with anyone. By the way, I was never with anyone that handsome because funny enough, people call me beautiful and this and that, but I've always went for the people who were not good looking. And I don't know why. It was probably because my self-esteem was so low. But as I stepped into my healing and power, I'm like, yeah, I deserve someone who's hot as me, so that was interesting. But then within a few weeks, I found out that he was, talking to some other girls too. And it was just a random thing. Like, I saw his phone and his phone was open. And I'm like, oh no, we are not about to have this. But then I was like, wait. Okay, the old Mary is like to panic and freak out. This is the new Mary, healed Mary. Healed Mary is calm, collective, assertive, and just says what she needs to say. So we were out, just having a cup of coffee. And I'm like, okay, so we've been, talking for a little while now. And I'm just going to say this, I really like you. And I would like to continue dating you. But one thing what's not sitting well with me is, one, you left your phone open for me to see. I don't know if that was intentional or not intentional, but we're just going to address it right here, right now. And I see you're talking to other people, which, is pretty normal when you're dating. But I thought that we're getting serious. So, like, what is it that you want to say about this? And he just looked at me. He was like, whoa, like, this girl is not playing no games. She's laying the law. And another thing that I said that was very powerful was, listen, if you want to not take this seriously, like, I can go. Like, because, if you're not it, then someone else is.
Right.
And he was just like, wow, this girl's confident. so he was just all confused. He was like, well, you just let me get a minute to explain that. So long story short, he's like, no, I like you too. And I was talking to other people, but I really want to be with you. And I was like, well, if you want to be with me, you have 2 days to figure it out. And I just left. I just took my bag and left. I was like, all right, I don't care. Like, meanwhile, inside, I'm like, yeah, I really care. I want to know what the hell's going on. So I let it rest for 2 days, right?
Yes.
Here's a grand shift. Are you ready?
Yes.
This is so shocking. This probably does not happen in American relationships, but it does. He's from a country next to Macedonia. He shows up to my apartment with his luggage. Wow. Yeah. I was just like, what are you doing here? Like, are you spending the weekend with a whole big luggage? I was so confused because, throughout the few weeks that we were dating, I'm not gonna lie, I felt lonely sometimes. So I would say to him, like, oh my God, like, you just totally move in one day. Like, the inner girl of you, like, some parts we can't undo. Yeah, it's okay to have those moments. Yeah. So I did say that to him a few times, like, hey, if you want to move in, no problem. Like, because I felt lonely. Mm-hmm. And he shows up with his big luggage. Wow. And he's like, well, I remember when we first started dating and I asked you if you want to move to Jersey and you said no because the tolls are too expensive. So I thought about it. I'm moving in. And I'm like, what? So I had a moment of freaking out. Like, I just couldn't help myself. Like, I went into a panic mode. I was just holding my head like this. I'm like, what's happening? Like, are you really moving in? Like, why? I was like, don't you have a home? He's like, no, my lease is up. So I think this is the perfect sign. I'm like, oh my God. So then I told him, no, I need 2 days to figure this out. It's so funny because I told him, you figure it out. Now I'm like, so he left the luggage, but then he went back to Jersey because I told him I need my space for 2 days. I really need to process what the hell is going on. Yeah. Because this is all so fast now. He's like, but what do you mean? Like, you're the one who wanted to move on and, like, get an answer from me. So
ladies, yeah. You do that. Be careful, Jack.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for. Because when it happened, I was just, like, getting scared. Like, all the emotions started to come to me, and I'm like, okay, this is a big deal because if I move in, like, the whole culture community is going to know that, like, he's half of a husband. Like, it's not like Americans where you just, change boyfriends and they move in with you whenever you want or break up whenever you want. It's like, if you're with him, that's it. He's basically your husband. Like, you wouldn't catch a Macedonian person say, oh, so and so moved in with her and that's her boyfriend. No, they're going to say, oh, that's her husband. They don't even care whether you got married or not, because in their culture of mind, it's like, oh, yeah, they're married, you know? So I was like, wait a minute, this is a big deal. Like, oh my God, my mom doesn't even know. Like, what is going on? And I called him, like, oh my God, my mom doesn't know. He goes, yeah, she does. I'm like, what? You spoke to my mom? He's like, yeah, this whole thing is all right. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, because I took him to dinner to meet my mom.
Yeah.
And he doesn't smoke cigarettes often, but once in a while he'll do it, socially. And
Yeah.
my mom's a heavy smoker, so he felt like that was the way to be friends with her. So while they were smoking, I had no idea what they were saying last week, the week before. He was like, hey, I really want to move in with her. She seems quite lonely, and I think it's great financially for us to be together. And da 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 da. I have no idea. I'm like in the living room, like singing my favorite Bulgarian song, like no idea. So it happened so fast, and the transition was really hard. Those 2 days were really difficult for me, because I was like, okay, this is scary. I don't know what's gonna happen. The unknown is here. It's either I'm gonna go for it or I lose him forever. But he's replaceable, isn't he? I'm like talking to myself.
Right. Yeah. We do
So
that. That's real.
yeah, so I'm like, oh yeah, like is there like a sign like somewhere, like God tell me like this is okay? So I was like, you know what? Let me just do it. Like, what do I have to lose? And then that's where the healed part of me started talking, like, hey, Mary, guess what? If it doesn't work out, who cares? Who cares? That was really a life-changing perspective and thing to say to myself. Like, you know what? Who cares about what the people say?
Right. That's right. This is your life.
Yeah, who cares if they said, hey, this girl, she got married like 4 times and they call me a whore, let's say it.
That's real.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, you know what? Who cares? Because are they the ones paying my bills? No. Are they the ones living what I'm living through? No. And at the end of the day, I was like, love's a risk. Love's a risk.
It is. Yeah.
Let me just go, because I feel like in my heart like this is it. And I'm gonna say this. This is very transparent. When he moved in, I felt very weird. I felt weird for that whole entire month, and I was telling Shamar, I'm like, oh my God, do I even like him anymore? Like, I don't know what it is. She's like, no, you're just scared. You're so scared. You're so scared to love again. You're scared of getting hurt, and you're scared that the same thing's gonna happen. You're scared that he's gonna leave you, or that he might hurt you, and so you're just in fear, Yeah. So I wasn't talking that much. I wasn't that high energetic person that I usually am with him. And I just kept telling him, listen, this is the truth. This is how I feel. I'm scared. So just bear with me for this month or two, and he was like, okay. And he was really good about it, because I think if it was another guy, he would run away. He would be like, you know what, this girl's all crazy. you know? So, but yeah, he was with me throughout that transition. He was with me throughout getting off the medications, and just giving me so many happy moments. But one thing I want to say is that I never made him my full source of happiness.
Woo! You're talking, Coach Mary.
Yeah, and that's what I
say it again. My job.
Never made him my full source of happiness.
See, I love it when I get the opportunity to interview, like, basically because you're like a love coach, you're a divine love coach.
Yeah.
I love when I get to interview people that are in the relational industry, because I say these things to my clients all the time, but that's not really my thing. So they listen, but they really don't, because they're like, Coach Robyn, what are you talking about? But I say all the time, that is so unhealthy.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that there is no such thing as making any one person your like end all be all. That, do you know how much pressure that puts on that person? And it makes things so unhealthy.
Are you a Christian?
I am.
Okay. So I'm going to use this metaphor so the listeners can understand. So you know that God doesn't like when we idolize people too much.
Correct.
So what are you doing when you're idolizing a man? you're not living in God's word, are you?
Ooh.
Yes.
Woo!
Yes.
Baby, this is y'all. I hope y'all are picking this up. Oh my God. Woo!
Is that not true?
That is so true. That is so true.
It's basically like God saying anything in like too much is not good for you. You put too much ketchup on that fries, your stomach is gonna hurt, right? Anything in excess is not good. So that brings us back to the term of balance, right? You have to have a balance in everything you do, and that's what I teach women in my program. Like, how do you find certain things to make yourself happy and also not get too excited in the beginning? Like I have a client who she found this guy and she got so excited and like she was like about to say no to seeing her friend. And I'm like,
big no.
I'm like, excuse me? You are going to see your friend at brunch at 12 o'clock, though, like the way you said you was. Because what are you going to do when you leave all your friends behind? And this is so common.
It is. And then it doesn't work out. And then you try to fall back on those friends. And they're like, but girl, you ditched me. So now they're all, you know what I mean? They're all bitter and stuff like that. And I'm not sure that they should even give you a second chance because you don't want to be dubbed as that person that once you are in a relationship. And I used to say this to even my siblings. I have older sisters and the younger ones, we used to say this to them all the time. When you guys are in relationships, you forget that you got sisters. You forget, and I used to try to, I've been explaining this. It's so funny because I'm not a relationship expert. I personally feel like I'm the last person to advise anybody on any relational, but there's just, because of my own personal life experience,
right?
And there is just so many things that I tell people. I'm like, I tell people the things that I feel like no one wants to talk about. Like, get yourself together, like get yourself healed, get all of your stuff together, make sure everything is aligned and in order, that you are safe and secure for yourself first. Number one. Number two, don't ever put all of your happiness into, put that on a person. You need to know you, learn you. What is your purpose? What are your likes? What are your dislikes? What are the things that drive you? What are your passions? Do the things that make you happy.
Right.
Losing you is not an option. And I personally have been there where I've been in a marriage where I used to fight. And I would say the same things. This is not healthy. You go out with your friends. Let me go out with this. I used to say all the time, and it was like speaking to a brick wall. Did not understand. You go be with your friends. Go do the things that make you. Go do that. Like we can't do everything together.
No,
we just can't, because first of all, we're not gonna.
You get so tired of each other.
Yeah, that part, you get tired. And then honestly, it's like, why? I mean, now I'm all for compromising. If you love someone, every now and again, compromise, right? Yeah. But I'm not going to make you, poor thing, I'm not going to make you subscribe to something you just have no taste for.
Right.
Like, you just hate it. That's what girlfriends are for. You and your girlfriends like to go do it. You know what I'm saying? Go do that with them. And it's like people don't understand that, and they get into relationships and they make that person their source, like you said.
Yeah.
They put all of this pressure on them, not understanding that we alone are responsible for our happiness. Your partner is supposed to add to that.
Complementary. Yep.
That's it. Add to it. They're not responsible for it. We've got to shift that paradigm. You're supposed to have a full, juicy life. Let me tell you, Coach Mary, I do dance classes every week, honey. I got my own stuff going on. You understand? Okay. Yes. I do things that make more happy. Okay. So, like, ladies.
Even your business, and that's another thing, like working on my business every single day. reading books, and I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, I love
These are like the high intellectual, activities that put you in a different place. You learn something new and you feel better, and then you want to enlighten someone else. Like that's like a different sacred level of happiness, which I think that a lot of people won't understand even if they listen to it. You have to be trained by someone. You have to have a coach because you can't get there alone. Yeah, you can go, buy your favorite book, read it for a weekend. But if it's not part of your daily routine, you are not reaching that sacred level of happiness, and that happiness is what you're doing every day. It's not what you're doing once a week. It's every day.
that part. I call it integration, implementation, and execution. They
Yes.
have to go together. People
Right.
often are only worried about, well, I have a goal, so let me implement to execute. And it's like, but if you don't integrate, catch it, y'all. I'm dropping a gem.
Right.
We often think, right? But if
Mhm.
you don't integrate, and that's the integration, what you just said, every day.
Every day.
The integration.
But
If it's only, yeah.
people are impatient, and I think, and I was too, I'm sure you were at the beginning of your journey, like, hey, I want to reach this goal. Let's say it's relationships, let's say it's financial. I just want to get there today, or tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how can you get there from a place of lack? You're empty, right? So if you don't feed your mind with, let's say, someone who's training you and coaching you, let's say someone joined your program and you're coaching them, they're coming on 0 to 20%, right? They're like run down. Doesn't mean they're not successful because they're high achieving, right? But just certain part of them is running down, right? And they need you to hold that space for them. Same with me. I'm able to hold that space. You're able to hold that space because we've already achieved that sacred level of happiness. We already achieved that. Oh, I'm full. I'm good. So now I can help others. But you can't go on and tell me, hey, you just started training with me today and tomorrow you want to be a coach. Like, I did that with Shamara and she laughed at me. I told her, I was like, what do you think if I become a mindset coach by tomorrow? And she's like, I literally said that to her. I was like, oh my God, I should just open an Instagram page. I should just, and she's like, oh my God, what the hell? She was, she was like, you're all over the place. Like, stop it. And I think that was probably from the anxiety that I had, because a person with anxiety has excessive thoughts super fast. I mean, like, my brain could not shut up. Like, my brain could not shut up, but it was very sporadic. And I think that's probably what a lot of people who are just beginning their high achieving, like, status, is that so sporadic. They're not choosing one thing and not doing it every single day. They're just like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do this. And like, whoa. Like, first you got to achieve yourself, number one. Then you can achieve the relationship, the transformation that you offer. That's the goal.
Absolutely. I always say this, birth her to birth it. That's my thing. Because I want people to understand that whatever it is, in terms of birthing your new, whatever you're doing, whatever it is, it's going to require a new version and or a higher version of you in order to access it, period.
Yeah.
So that means it's going to take you working on you and then working on the it, whatever that it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I get that. And people who are high achieving should get it too,
Right?
Coach Mary.
Absolutely. Listen, Coach Mary, I want you to really briefly speak to the woman listening that's like, oh my God, I so vibe with Coach Mary. I so get her journey and what she's been through. And that's me. That's where I'm at. Give just a quick word of encouragement to the woman going through the divorce, to the woman that's looking to find her divine love partner. Like, give a quick word of encouragement and then let them know where they can contact you and reach out to you.
Okay, so a word of encouragement is that if you even have an ounce of you that knows that you deserve better in relationships, because let's say you're getting out of a bad relationships, or you're currently actually in a mediocre one right now and you're like, should I stay, should I go? If you have an ounce of you that feels like, you know what, I deserve better, then guess what? You gotta do better for yourself. And that starts with self-respect. Okay? Because when you start having self-respect, everything starts aligning. Once you know, if you have that ounce that knows I deserve better, and you amplify that every day, I deserve better, I deserve better, I deserve better, I deserve better, guess what? You're going to get better. And I remember when I was with my cousin one day, she was in the kitchen, we were drinking a cup of coffee. And I said to her, while I was in the marriage, like, I think my first husband was in the living room and we were in the kitchen. I'm like, girl, I'm going to leave him one day. I just don't know when. And I know I deserve better. And I literally said these words and I manifested it. It took me 2 years to manifest it, you know, unconsciously. But I'm like, I'm going to find someone who's very hardworking, who contributes to me financially. I'm going to find someone who's handsome. And I'm going to be with someone who comes from a great family, who respects me and who respects my ambition for business and for other things that I want to try, but I just can't do because I feel sick. And that's what I said to her. She just looked at me. She's like, girl, you crazy. You know, she was like, I don't think we can do that. Because, you know, she's coming from my community. She's like, okay, now you're talking all rebellious. I don't know. I'm not with you on that. My father's going to be mad at me. So, but if you have that ounce of vision, even when you're in that rut like I was, it took me 2 years to get there. But if you have that feeling that you deserve better, then you can get there. And you can reach me at divineloveguide.com. I'm lounging on Christmas Day because I think Christmas Day for a lot of people is exciting, but for another people, you know, who's going through a bad time, let's say a divorce or is separating, or maybe their loved one just passed away. Whatever it is, I want to invite you to watch my free training that's lounging on Christmas Day and give you that ultimate love guide support.
Awesome. Awesome. You guys, you already know I got your back. So all of her links for social media as well as her website will be found in the description and show notes. You guys, this right here, like, I really want to keep her, but we're going to have you back on again for like Valentine's Day. Like, so we have to do something.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Yes, you have so much insight, you guys. And look, I've learned some new stuff. She's helped me. She's helped your coach. Okay?
Oh my gosh. Like, serving the server.
Okay. Like, this has just been amazing. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You guys know what to do. The links will be in the description and the show notes. And as always, until next time, what do I need for you to do? I need for you to believe in your future.
That's right.
So that you can outlive your past. I love y'all, and I'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into Diaries of an Ex-Adult Entertainer, the podcast. Don't forget to connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Robyn D. Robbins. Important links for this episode can be found in the description. Until next time, share this podcast with a friend. Hugs and much love, beautiful soul.